and line, adventurers who dare the white water, silver wings that need to float before they can fly, all while nurturing feathered fledglings, giving sanctuary to the sand martin, moorhen and tern, the gulls that govern the sandbanks, but always in motion, rippling, splashing, bubbling up and over, cascading, rolling and racing with each ebb tide towards the tang of salt, the wider vision of the sea.
Wherever you are now, you'll always be young in my heart, brother. You were the lad I larked with, sparred with, rode with, threw snowballs at, in those distant days when proud indeed was this, our ancestral home, Wyddgrug. Yes, even as the wild wind blows, walls cracked, rainwater sluicing through leaky roofs, south wing subsiding with mining below. Yes, even as I clutch this disabled shotgun in my cold camp bed, no one to answer my bell. This I will allow. Grand times we had as boys, Simon, when young the century was too. But the squire you made, when came your time, was a sorry excuse, to be sure. Guts, gumption, and the common touch lacking, you made instead a curmudgeonly recluse, venturing forth but occasionally, with gingerbreads in your pocket. Tomorrow, crows by the dozen will croak with derision as I sign this place away, this place of priceless treasures, of memories and decay, Wyddgrug, our ancestral home. A sorry pass, true, but not entirely down to you, hardly, with 2 world wars along the way. This I will allow. And wherever you are now, brother, young in my heart, you will always be.
A short distance from bus station and town centre, a group of builders displaced gold, bossed about treasure, built the quick fit and turfed the fiefdom of the rugby club. A Bronze Age piece without compare across Celtic homelands. A slight girl, her shoulders draped with God.
I put 6 kisses on your pillow last week. You asked me to look at the bee box. 3 bees on the doorstep. 2 bees fly near the tip. Soon the bee box will be in high activity. I must not allow small misunderstandings to build into a mountain. Best to climb to the peak, holding hands. Such great beauty in this forest, where every tree, plant and creature rules its day. The brook in this forest sings. Like all brooks, its water the giver of life. I must be tolerant. Forests teach me. What can I give to this forest which gives so much to me? Tadpoles in the little pond near the stream at the edge of the meadow. How great this deep happiness! Nothing must disturb its peace.
Pebbles populate the strand between the tides and the dunes. People and puppies paddle in shallow pools. Gulls gawp and gyre against grey clouds. Marram grass with tangled roots holds the sand to account in steep cliffs. Sandy paths climb between lime grass to cottage garden escapes and sea holly. The sun sears the dune slack to brown where pink century and yellow hawkspit raise their heads. A skylark mines the blue sky for sacred notes. Curlews complain about their own drabness. Flames shoot into the sky from the enormous pipes of the gas terminal behind the high fences. A skyline of golden and white cranes at Mostyn assemble the tubular legs of the wind farms, which peer from the horizon at the wooded valleys of the Halkin Hills. Across the estuary, glinting windows and white houses on Wirral's green slopes lead the eye to Hilby Island, where seals play in the waves, while the River Dee sighs as it disappears into the salty waters of the Irish Sea.
The coal train passes twice a day with 1,000 tons to haul, and a single whistle at the cross becries its lonely call. The coal train shuffles through the town with little noise or fuss, but when the steam train plied this route it wasn't always thus. The steam train called its name out loud as it paced the valley track. The coal train's coming, the coal train's coming, the coal train's coming back. And as it clattered toward the town, the steam train called ahead. The coal train's coming, the coal train's coming, did you all hear what I said? And the whistle that screamed at the crossing was such that none could ignore. The dead would cry, please let me sleep, please let me rest once more. And the night shift workers turned in their beds, recounting their latest dreams, but then fell to sleeping soundly between the coal train's screams. And schoolboys dreamed of driving trains and would watch the engine go by, and the driver always waved to them with a smile and a glint in his eye. Then the coal mine closed some years ago, and the town has not fared well, for a coal mining town without its mine is a pathway that's leading to hell. And the heart of the town is broken again each time that train passes through, for there's nothing so sad in a coal mining town as miners without work to do. So nobody waits for the coal train now, and nobody cares for its call. The schoolboys are playing computer games, they barely go outside at all. But the diesel train passes here twice each day, hauling coal from another town's mine, although now it's ashamed to call out its name, so it quietly slips down the line.
Droplets of sadness kissed my forehead as I wandered through a jungle of forgetfulness, where I fought anxiety I thought had gone away, but it clung to the cliffs of mind's torment. I knew there was something wrong, although I couldn't put my finger on it. Her eyes would look away, avoiding confrontation, hiding from the questions I eventually would ask. Our glade had become a darker place, where spirits lay in wait for me, and I grew restless in my coat of thorns, not knowing how I could eradicate the pain. I was a leper in my heart of hearts, could not lay softly with myself, cut the strings of self-belief which were the cement of life's intent. And so I ambled into a forest of blackcurrant briars, sipping sweeter days before the thorns would tear the compassion from my soul and leave me sobbing in my pain. But I loved her, and she would leave me bare, but I didn't know the reason why she didn't care. I could change the wasp into a butterfly, where we could drink again a glass of wine. And devastation, eventually I broke. Fine-cut crystals threw tatters in my head. I knew the only route that I must take was in my hands and lay in the courts of law. The buzzards wore their wigs in deference, looked so superior to humble folk, and I felt frightened as I sat and watched, frightened that her eyes would intertwine with mine. I walked from that sombre building after listening to her countless lies, and I curled up with myself in self-protection. I was in bits. I felt I must not die. What had I done? A week later, I was sitting in the park. My eyes were focused on the sky, when suddenly I saw her face peeping out from behind a cloud. She was arm in arm with George, my school friend of 20 years, and as I turned on my bench to weep, they were together there for me to see. I wept no more. Now I knew the reason why. My anger swept me to my feet instantly, and I became a jungle cat and walloped him, then retreated to my chair. Charles picked himself up. I felt better now. I'd given him a black eye, and he would remember that, but so would I. A week later, I received a letter from the court, and financially, he too had socked me in the eye.
Muse chanted sotto voce with a lost sea voice that told of barnacle pools, gannet pulsing seas, and a coracle spiralling. Untamed music rose from seal caves, whilst Chuff stitched red and black threads into the intoxicating air of an island retreat. In windswept barrows, old bones trembled and resonated like the tread of footsteps on the whistling sands. Her words circled in between rocks and clustered in aquamarine. Currents pulled them into silver patches of water where the sky napped. She was a cart-wheeling water sprite spinning on the edge between sand and sea, a silhouette on the horizon that vanished into a flash of green.
The donkey followed me to the ford. I pointed at the river's grey colour, told him how it ran orange back in the steelworks days, and trout and limestone turned rusty. I showed him how even now you could scrape a stone and still disturb red oxide. The donkey remained silent, eyeing the depth of water. I told him about the spring that used to bubble in the lane, clear and cool. Still he stood. I couldn't fathom his thoughts, so, hitching up my skirt, crossed the ford. Behind me, a clatter, then a splashing. I called out, "The river is mostly recycled rain." But he continued upstream. And though he told me nothing, his absence was a cold draught, cold as the incessant water.